Welcome back to the 44th episode of the Boy Oh Boy Wowee podcast. Today we have another huge guest who has umpired 309 AFL games and 2 grand finals. Please welcome Ray Chamberlain. Thanks heaps for coming on today, Ray.
Bailey, thanks for having me, mate. Episode number 44.
Yep.
John Platten, Richard Osborne. Who else? Was there any other number 44s? John Platten's the one I remember.
I don't know. 2 pretty good handy players there, though.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, so, mate, thanks for having me.
How'd you sort of start your umpiring journey?
Yeah, I played footy. I love AFL footy.
Yep.
And I played from the age of 5. So I'm as old as dirt, Bailey. When I was a 5-year-old, you could play competitive sport. However, there were modified rules. So there was no tackling. You could bump.
Yep.
Which is hilarious because now we're getting rid of the bump, you know. You could bump. You weren't allowed to tackle. Anyway, I was come from a background of rugby league players in both sides of my family, my mum's side and my father's side. My mother's uncle actually captained or played for Australia and captained his club side in the New South Wales Rugby League. So that was that background. And mum signed me up to footy, and it just happened to be that it was Australian rules football. She didn't even realise that it wasn't rugby league.
Yeah.
So I played footy for 10, 12 years. And then I turned up to watch my brother play a game, and no umpire turned up. My brother was 12 and I was 17.
Yep.
And they asked me to do it. They said, we won't let anyone hang shit on you. And we'll fill your car up with petrol if you umpire the game. So I went and saw my mum. I said, are you still giving me $20 for petrol? She said, yep. So I grabbed the money and I went back and said, yep, no worries. Fill my car up and I'll do it. So that's how it started, mate.
Yeah. When did you sort of think that you could sort of make a career out of it?
That's a good question. I got picked. I umpired a tournament during the school holidays. I didn't even know it was on. It was the New South Wales State Championships, and it was held in Canberra. So, you know, Albury, different sides from all Riverina, you know, all these different sides, and came to Canberra and played. And they played this state championships. And I got asked, would you be interested in umpiring? And so I went along, and I ended up being picked to the grand final with another guy. He got picked to go to what is now the under-18 national championships. It was called the Teal Cup back in the day.
Yep.
And I didn't get anything, but I got a phone call a couple of weeks later, and there was this other comp, which was under 16s. And I got picked to go to that. And that was held in Darwin. And I went to that real hot weather, big ground, 2 umpire systems. So you got to be able to run. And that was actually what I was good at. I was pretty new to umpiring, to be honest. I really should have been umpiring national championships. I wasn't that experienced. But anyway, did really well, got picked for the grand final. And then they nominated me to go away with the Australian team to Ireland.
Yep.
And that team had guys like Mark McVeigh, Damien Cupido, Des Headland, Andrew Embley, these sorts of guys, right?
Yep.
And so that's when I learned, there's a pathway and there's you can make a career out of it. When I realised I liked umpiring was pretty early, and because I love the game, I was still playing, but people were really quite kind and very positive with their feedback. So back then, mate, it was all old dads running around, no hair, big guts, just volunteering to umpire the footy, right? And I was this young, fit guy. And so people would come up to me from other clubs and they'd still cheer and all that and barrack. But afterwards, you might be getting a can of soft drink or a hot dog from the food store on the way out or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were really kind, and they'd say, mate, hey, you should keep doing this, And I think that's a really important message for people, because too often you go to junior sporting grounds now, right? And you've got young people essentially volunteering as umpires in whatever sport, Aussie rules, rugby league, netball, soccer, whatever. And the environment isn't great.
Yeah.
right? And people get it wrong in how they behave. And and I know that I wouldn't have pursued it if I hadn't received as much positive support as I did when I first started. So that's when I knew I loved it, and I thought I might have been okay at it. And when did I know that it was a career in it? When I got to go away with the Australian team to Ireland, and that was one of my favorite trips ever.
Yeah. What was your lead up to getting into the VFL system to umpire there?
So, like anything, like playing, you play for your junior club, right?
Yep.
And you make your way up to under 18s or whatever, and then you got the reserves and seniors. So that all is the same with umpiring, okay? And then from there, you've got these different representative levels. So I had finished my university degree. So I was 21,
Yep.
22 years of age, 22. And I'd been umpiring in the AFL under 18 competition. And I umpired some finals there.
Yep.
And I got offered a part-time job at the AFL and in Sydney, and go up to Sydney and umpire AFL reserves footy. That was a competition that existed then, and umpire in the New South Wales State League. And I did that for a year.
Yep.
And a couple of guys from the AFL came and saw me in Sydney one night. Peter Schwab was the boss of the umpires back then.
Yep.
He's a really cool man, Schwabby. I really love him. He's a ripper. And he just took me aside. We went for a walk, and he got stuck into me a bit, to be honest. And then he said, if you're serious, pack your shit up, move to Melbourne, umpire in the VFL, and have a crack. And so I spoke with the state director of the VFL umpires, which was a man by the name of Kevin Mitchell, who is a really good man in terms of umpiring. Hard fella, but very fair. And he said to me, he promised me 2 years. He goes, I'll give you 2 years that I'll guarantee you on the list if you move from Sydney to Melbourne. Yep. And then you're on your own. You either make it on your own ability, or you will cut you. So I packed everything I owned and moved away from home. Yep. And moved to Melbourne and started umpiring in the VFL.
Yeah, what was that like to move away from home for you? Was it sort of tough, or?
It was a bit scary because I didn't know anyone, mate.
Yep.
I knew one guy that I umpired with at that national championships in Darwin, and I was meant to live with him. So I moved to Melbourne, and I was going to share a room in the joint that him and his girlfriend at the time lived in. And by the time I arrived there, they'd split up. So he wasn't there. That was awkward. So it was, I was leaving all my friends. I knew where I'd go to the gym. I didn't have to pay or line up. I just lob in, and I knew I had a job lined up. I had a teaching job lined up. So all these different options. But I was really passionate about AFL footy. I love it. I know I was passionate about umpiring. So I thought, you know what? I'd rather have a dig to chase my dream first. And if that doesn't go any good, well, I can go back to, a 9-to-5 job after that. Yeah. So I was very nervous, but I was also excited. Yeah, it was good fun. It was. I had to grow up. I know that. I had to grow up pretty quick.
Yeah. What was sort of your first VFL game like for you? Like, many nerves before it, or?
Yeah, I remember. So I umpired down in Frankston, and the funny story around that is one of my colleagues, who's still a mate now, I didn't know how long I didn't know where anything was, right? I'm living in Richmond. I just knew where that suburb was, but I had no idea how long it took you to travel. There's no get your phone and whack it in at 42 minutes, no dramas, right? Yeah. We didn't have that. So I asked one of the guys at training, I said, how long should I give myself to arrive at Frankston in time? Anyway, he added an hour on, right? So I've arrived at the ground for my first VFL game, and the VFL reserves are just walking on to start the game. Oh, no. So I was like, sitting there forever. He thought he was hilarious. He still gives me shit about that today. God ain't that head. I don't trust a word that comes out of his bald face now. I can't go, mate, we can't trust you. I can't trust you ever again. So that was a bit of a practical joke. But, that was my first game down at Frankston.
Yeah, what was it? How was the lead up to getting into the AFL system?
For me, I had a unique pathway. How it used to happen, it's changed a few times since. You had to do the state league grand final, so the VFL grand final, or if you're from WA, the Waffle grand final, and then they'd nominate those umpires who would do the pre-season with the AFL, and you'd umpire in the pre-season.
Yep.
And then at the end of all of that, the AFL knew whether they had 1, 2, 3, 4 spots available on the list.
Yep.
And they'd make their decision. Anyway, coming through Victoria, we had a really strong list, and a very, very strong list in Victoria. And I didn't get picked for the VFL grand final. I got picked for the VFL reserves grand final.
Yep.
So 3 other guys trialled and had made the AFL list, and I didn't get the opportunity. Anyway, midway through that year, a gentleman who was on the AFL list had to resign from his spot. He had some stuff going on in his life, and he had to go and address that. So they had this spot available. So normally what happens, mate, is they'll pick the next person who trialled, but so I hadn't really qualified, but they wanted to pick me. I was lucky enough, they recognised that they felt that I was the next best. And so the AFL Umpires Association, which is kind of like our union, they were really supportive, and they endorsed my nomination. And so mid-year in 2004, I got promoted from the VFL senior list onto the AFL list, and I debuted about 8 or 10 weeks later. In the year, I debuted in down at Launceston. Hawthorn played West Coast, and that was my very first AFL game.
Yeah. What was that like to wait a little while before you could sort of debut for?
Yeah, it was. I nearly quit after not getting to trial at the end of 2003. I was a bit shitty, and I kind of felt like I was getting shafted a bit, and I was going to go back to Canberra. And my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, said to me, "You'll regret it. You'll regret it. Have another, go again. Yep, okay, it's been 3 years, got it, but go again. You will never forgive yourself." Yep. And I'm really glad that I did. I actually listened to her. She thinks I don't listen to her. I did listen to her. And because obviously, had I gone home, I would never have had the opportunities that I've subsequently had. So I kind of think also, Bailey, sometimes we think we know, I want to be that. So in my case, I want to be an AFL umpire. Well, that's great, mate. But was I actually ready earlier? Probably not, mate. I had parts of my skills weren't good enough. Lots of things were, but I had some bits that I needed to work at or get better. Yep. And by having to wait a bit further, I had longer to get that stuff sorted out. Yeah. So that when I finally did get my chance, I was able to survive.
Yeah. What was sort of your feeling when you found out you were going to be umpiring your first game?
I was pumped. I was pretty excited. You're just thrilled because you're just not sure you're ever going to get the chance, right? So I felt like I could do it. Like in my gut, I went, I can do this. Like I'm capable of doing this. Yeah. And I'd seen guys I'd umpired with at VFL get there and do brilliantly, like from the start. First game, Sean Ryan is a guy who I respect enormously. Yeah. And I remember he came on at Brian Sheen, who's a Hall of Fame umpire. Brian got injured, had to go off the ground, and Sean Ryan went onto the field and umpired. I'm pretty sure it was Carlton Richmond at the MCG. And he was brilliant, right? Yep. Because he's a brilliant umpire. Anyway, and I knew, man, if you can be that good, I've umpired with you at VFL and I know where I can do. If you can be that good, I can at least survive. Yeah. But I just wasn't sure I was ever going to get the chance. So then when you get told, hey, you're in this week, it's just, it's brilliant. It's like, it's something you've been striving for so long,
Yeah, most people wouldn't know, but what's sort of the lead up to in an umpire's week before game day?
It's hectic because there's a lot that you're supposed to do, So you've got all your physical training. Yep. And that might be whether that's, different running sessions. So the earlier session in the week's usually pretty long, a bit longer, so heavier stuff. And then the last running session of the week tends to be a bit shorter, sharper, faster, a bit like match running. Yep. Yeah, repeat sprints and bouncing and all that. But we've obviously got jobs as well, right? So you've got full-time employment.
Yep.
You've got your family. So I've got a daughter and wife. I've got to, help look after and be part of the house and, mow the lawns and walk the dog and all that sort of stuff, put the bins out. And then, on top of that, you've got to review your last game. So we've got all that sort of coaching stuff. So you've got to put all your feedback into this app.
Yep.
It goes to your coach. And then once your coach gets your feedback, he'll send you through what he thinks.
Yep.
And then you got to meet and you got to do the coaching and all that sort of stuff. And then when you get old like me, there's a lot of work that goes into recovery.
Yep.
So some of that will be, massage and physio and that sort of stuff. And some of it will be more to do with, your head and making sure that you're giving yourself downtime mentally and some stuff around that. And then I do stuff in the gym. And it's about making sure my tendons and things like that are okay. Because the longer you run for, the more you beat yourself up, right?
Yeah.
So it's a big week, mate. It's a big week.
Yeah. What was your first year in the AFL system like for you, and how quickly did it sort of take you to sort of get the pace of the game?
So it was what I found really, what struck me. You got these crowd, right?
Yep.
So now we've got these microphone vests on. So you've got your AirPod in your ear, right?
Yep.
We've got a thing in our ear. And if you're umpiring with me and you're at the other end of the ground talking to the fullback or whatever, I can hear everything you say in my ear.
Yep.
So with our teamwork, I don't need to look and see where you are.
Yeah.
I just watch the play. And then you'll say to me, yours, Ray, and then I know I'm umpiring now. Okay, beautiful. Right away we go as the ball comes in. But when I started, we didn't have this stuff, right?
Yep.
So we would signal to each other with hand signals and arm movements. Still mine. You put your arms down straight. That means yours.
Yep.
So you imagine there's 80, 90,000 people at MCG, right? You can't hear each other.
Yeah.
And you got to, who's umpiring this? Am I umpiring? Are you umpiring this? So you're trying to find your teammate. Is he giving this to me or not? Got all this crowd, all this noise. The players are bigger and faster and they're throwing it. And I'm looking up here and I'm supposed to be looking here. So I found that really challenging when I first started. Like, Jesus, there's a bit going on here.
Yep.
So that was more the step up. And I'll tell you the hard bit. And some players are the same. It's the same for players as it is for umpires, okay? It's the actual environment.
Yep.
Like when you get on there and like you've got this, so you'd be sitting there waiting to bounce the ball. And of course the TV's gone to an ad break, right?
Yep.
You're sitting there ready to go. You can't bounce it, mate. You got to wait till the ad finishes, right? So they've got this light up in the stand and you're sort of looking for where the light is.
Yep.
And as soon as the light flashes, right, I've got 4 seconds and I've got to bounce the ball. Okay, that's all I'm allowed. I've got to bounce it, right? So just even that was weird, right? Because that's not what happens at VFL. You bounce it whenever you want, right?
Oh, yeah.
So all these little things that were just, it's the environment. And it's like, how do you adapt to, can you be comfortable in the environment? That's the skill.
Yep. What's it like being one of the more entertaining umpires in the AFL?
Yeah, that's entertaining. That's a nice word. Thank you for that, Bailey. I appreciate that. Some of that's my doing. That's my personality. It's just how I am.
Yeah.
And then there's a significant part of me that's not any different to any of my colleagues, okay? So you'll always hear what I'm saying on the field.
Yeah.
Because the little dude in the van who's playing with the buttons and as to what you can hear on the broadcast or not, mine's always full on turned open, right? So you'll hear everything I say. Whereas some other umpires, for whatever reason, they're not, they don't consider them entertaining, whatever, they'll turn them down. And they'll say just as much as me, and you won't hear a word of what they say all day, right? It's just my fat head and my mouth that's running off. So some of it's my doing, some of it's not. I didn't like it to start with, mate. I found it a little bit, I felt very self-aware and almost like, I didn't like it. But I've learned to understand that it's just a game, mate, and it's entertainment, and it is what it is. And so now I'm pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah. How have you dealt with criticism over your game over the years?
I think there's a number of ways to look at this one. All right. If we look at it, and it doesn't matter whether you're an umpire, Bailey, whether you're a student in the classroom and the teacher's saying, being critical about your work, or you're at work yourself and your boss is riding you a bit hard or whatever, right?
Yep.
Mum and dad, whatever, okay? Boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. So critical feedback from those who matter it's just feedback. It's just information for you to consider and to be smart enough to go away and go, actually, you know what, that makes a bit of sense. If I did try that, maybe my performance would improve. All right. And then there's just shit talk and noise and crap that comes from people that are just passionate, right? Which is really cool. I love that. But it's not informed. It's not necessarily relevant. So I sort of think this, Bailey, if I wouldn't go to that particular person for advice, if I needed advice, would I go to that person to seek it? If the answer's no, then I'm not taking their feedback on, mate, right? Because I'm not interested. You're not informed. It's just crap noise, right? Yeah. So there's a little bit of that as well. I'll say this though, because I don't want to sound like a stook around that, right? I love that I go and umpire a game at the MCG, okay? This is pre-COVID. And there's 90,000 people at the MCG, okay? And a tackle happens. And 45,000 people go, ball. 45,000 people go, back. And I call play on. And 90,000 people go, ape shit, Bailey. And they all agree on one thing, mate, and that is that I don't have a clue what I'm doing, right? So that's just the awesome thing about Australian rules football and the rules around it and what have you. It's got nothing to do with me. It's not about me, mate. It's just the game itself. So I think it's really awesome. And I think the fact that our rules are a little bit grey, that's why we get such great energy and such great debate and talking about it all year round. I think it's a really cool thing.
Yeah. How have you dealt with the rule changes that have come in while you've been umpiring?
They're hard. I remember, ultimately we can do whatever the AFL want us to do. So we don't decide what the rule changes are. Like we don't just come up with this great idea one day running around the oval. Oh, what about this for an idea, Ray? Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it. But that's not how rule changes come about, right? So they come down to us and they say, listen, this is what we do. This is what we need you guys to do this year. Our group's pretty good, They're actually pretty good at it. We just need to be told exactly what it is they want and why, so we understand, and then we're able to apply it. So, look, a lot of these rule changes, people go, oh, rule changes. A lot of them have been really good. About player safety, welfare, well-being. I think they're really necessary. Constant tinkering for tinkering's sake, I'm not a fan of that. Not a fan of that. But if there's something around well-being and safety, I think then it's really important that the game stays on the front foot with that. And I think the AFL have been amazing with that. In my time in the AFL, I think they've been amazing.
Yeah. When did you find out you're going to be umpiring your first grand final?
Yeah, so they ring you on the Monday, so leading into the grand final. So you'll have umpired either on the Friday night or the Saturday night in the preliminary final.
Yep.
And so there were 6 umpires that umpired, 3 on Friday, 3 on Saturday. There's only 3 spots, right? So half of you are going to miss out.
Yep.
And I've umpired 6 preliminary finals. I've twice been selected to do the grand final. One year I got to do 2 grand finals because there was a draw. On 3 occasions, I've been selected as the emergency umpire. So you're the first loser, right? You sit on the bench all day. So you're that close. So, yeah, and then a couple of times I've just missed out entirely. So when you do get that phone call on the Monday, it's usually mid-morning. It's incredibly like it's just so 60. I think there's been 60. Call it 63. I don't even think it's that many actually. I think it's under now. I'd have to have a look. But it's like low 60s people have ever umpired a grand final as a field umpire in the history of the game.
Yeah.
Like 62, 63 people ever have done one. So to get that phone call to say, hey, you're doing one, you're going to be part of the 62 that's ever done a game, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah. What's your lead up to a grand final like for an umpire?
Well, it's all the physical and the recovery and the rehab and the preparation. You try and keep the same because that's your pattern. That's what you do for your success. But that week's very busy. You've got all this media stuff. You get hundreds and literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of text messages and then emails and, getting hit up on your Instagram or whatever you might be, right? So people just being really nice, quite frankly, and reaching out to say congratulations. So you're replying to all of them because they obviously care about you. Yep. And so you want to be able to acknowledge that and say thanks back. So that's hectic and takes a lot of energy. You got all these media things. You go and do speaking gigs and all this kind of crap. And then we train, and then on Thursday night, we usually have a dinner at the MCG and your family come to that. So It's just the umpires and their partners, and we'll have a guest speaker, and it might be Lee Matthews or someone will come along and give you some insight into the world and into footy, and it's a brilliant night. And then Fridays, obviously, and again, I'm talking outside of COVID, right? Fridays, obviously, the parade, which is just the best. In 2019, which is my last grand final, my daughter was able to jump in the car with me and be in the parade, and she bloody loved it. And that was really cool. So she was 10, so it was like a good age. And then, of course, then you've got to get yourself ready for the next day to be able to umpire to the best of your ability in the most important game you've ever been involved in. So, yeah, mate, it's a hectic week.
Yeah, who are some of the best players you've umpired throughout your career?
Yeah, not in order, but I'd go like Lance Franklin. I love Frankie. He's a jet. And then you get guys a bit older. So guys like Mark Rasciuto, unbelievable. I remember I only umpired a couple of games with guys like Michael Voss and that. I was sort of at the end of their career when I was starting. Chris Judd, amazing. And then you look at guys like I talk about a guy named Nick Smith who played for Sydney. Yeah. I just used to think this guy is so good, right? He never ever got beaten by his opponent. And yet it wasn't like he was this rock star guy they all talked about, but I just used to think, man, this guy is so awesome. So lots and lots of amazing players. I really like Surioli. Lots of amazing players. I'm really keen on I like how Aaron Norton goes for the ball in the air now. Yeah. He just smashes at the ball. I like the way he plays. So, yeah, there's lots and lots of crazy players. We've got Nick Natanui, it's so unique, powerful human, these little taps and tearing the ball out of the centre himself and just intimidating everyone. They're all different and they're all amazing in their own right.
Yeah. What have been some of the best moments throughout your AFL career?
So I could talk about drawn grand finals. I could talk about Anzac days. I could talk about umpiring St Kilda and Geelong. I think it was like round 15 or 16 or something like that. And they were both undefeated in 2009, and they played in front of a full house at Docklands. And St Kilda won right at the death with a goal to Michael Gardner, took a big pack mark and kicked his fourth goal, and they won the game. And they're all amazing. But you said to me, well, what are the best moments in your umpiring career? All my favourite moments are trips away.
Yep.
Right. So trips away with the boys. That's where the funny stories are. That's where, whenever we get back together or we're telling lies and having laughs and all that. Do you remember that time? Remember when we went to, when we were in Los Angeles? Do you remember when we were in Dublin? Do you remember when we went to Johannesburg? Do you remember And it's all these different moments, mate, and it's shared experience. So the venue isn't even relevant, right? It's like whatever it was that you're going through together with these guys and girls who are your mates and your colleagues. Yep. So it doesn't matter whether it's the AFL, Bailey, or whether it's at your local cricket club or footy club, mate.
Yeah.
It's the shared experience and times that you have with people who you really like and you enjoy spending time with. They're the highlights, mate.
It's everything I got for you, mate. Thanks heaps once again for coming on.
Hey, it's a pleasure and a privilege, and I'm most grateful. So, thank you very much for inviting me, mate. I hope that was okay.